He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas go 3 times by means of Prajnaparamita, fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Te ata om gate gate paragate parasangati bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. And the Blessed One arose from that samadhi, praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught. All the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Samarata Chandara Samaraya Vedayata Om Gate Gate Parasangate Bodhisattva Gonju Sunji Gai Lemmi Doji She Rabadaji Mevadaji Shevadaji Raji Baji Medu Biju Danji Yedin Hoye Zoa Ingeri Anyonya Yeju Yewada Medo Dobe Yena Lewada Naba Dunyam Bonzo Dunyoyi Naji Yanena Leleyo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma body in clouds of knowledge and love. and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Edam Guru Radha Mandala Gaya Dayami Laye Janam La Yajubadu Dani Yazuji Nagi Jani Bezonam Ye Yola Minye Zanye Rubayo Jadan Jaji Yola Zanjo Badu Dani Yazuji Nagi Janye Jibezananye Rola Minye Zanye Rubayo Yalan Dori Janam La Yanjo Bado Dani Yazuyi Nagi Junye Jibezonanye Rola Vinye Zanye Rubayo.
Watangatu Larigo, the content Tangasun to the other one with the Marga Chung did the Jibusung the Shivashas, Jibuchung, Chung, Tomo, Lazing on Dina, Ding Lages in Bat, Jibichibi Lages in Basung there, Judy, the others, and the Judy Rigid, and the Jibuchung, Chung, Tomo Lala, Langa Geshe Lharampa, and Ding Tomo Lager, did the Tomo Geshe Lharampa. jibu chibi lang jibu waris. Then aji ti du yang kuzo dambu jibu chungul ti. Then rinda dhumo lang ti. Jibu chibi lang ti waris. Ti gubi ta jusen di juji gan ta nga zo junyi da jusung juji pechi leza marba. What the leza ro? Yeah.
Again, we are looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, commentary on Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment. The beginning of Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment, it states, understand that there are persons of three capacities, small, middling, and great. I shall write clearly identifying their characteristics. So here, Atisha was identifying the stages of the path for persons of three capacities. The stages of the path that are shared in common with beings of small capacity, the stages of the path that are shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the stages of the path for beings of great capacity. And these stages of the path have cause and effect relationships with one another. So these stages of the path are actual stages from the small path to the medium to the great. So in dependence upon the stages of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, the stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity are produced. In dependence upon the stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, the stages of the path for beings of great capacity are produced. So they have cause and effect relationships with one another. And this is the section that we're dealing with now in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. The reason or the purpose for leading students in stages through these actual in these stages of persons of three capacities. So there are 14 points that are made. So we've gone over in the last couple of sessions the 12th and 13th point, and we've arrived at the actual 14th point that Lama Tsongkhapa makes. So going over again starting with the 11th point that's made. The 11th point that Lama Tsongkhapa makes in this section again, the purpose for leading students through the stages of three persons of three capacities. So the 11th point that's made is that once one has practiced the common practice, has practiced the perfection vehicle very well, the stages of the path shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, once one has a good basis of those practices, then one should enter the tantric vehicle, because the tantric vehicle allows one to achieve Buddhahood very quickly. So once one has engaged in practices and a good practice of the other stages, one should engage in the tantric path because of the how quickly one achieves Buddhahood. So that's the 11th point. The 12th point that's made is that if one has no affinity for the tantric path or doesn't like it for some reason, doesn't have a connection to the tantric path, then it's fine to engage in a rigorous study of the perfection vehicle. So then this is sufficient in point 12, a rigorous or an extensive practice in the perfection vehicle if one doesn't have this affinity for Tantrayana. And then the 13th point that's made is if one does have the affinity for and wishes to practice Tantrayana, then it's necessary to have an initiation and so forth. So the 13th point deals with the details of Tantrayana and the entrance in, the details of and Tantrayana and the entrance into Tantrayana. So we are now dealing with the point 13 again. Previously we went over it, and we are going to just go over it again quickly. So I'm just going to We are on page, find exactly where we are in the text. 137, it begins at the bottom of 137 and into 138. So this is in the English text where we are. And then in the Tibetan text, we must be on page 94, I think. 94? Lapsash.
당에 또 어디 가정아도 신사로 다 조송바로 조송바 하는 요바 이나는 하는 요야 요바 이나 아는 하는 요나는 시대바 단제도 쳐봐도 상안에 내대 쳐와 송비 신년대 주문에 쳐봐도 봐봐시 되네 시비 제소 단데 샤사 되네 주도 고만네 용유 왕기 주메바시네 대두도비 danser dans Domba. Domba là, sous du ciel là, suivant son ça. Chaba de taille, ton yu pona, là, l'an de yéjan, un du tu souhaitais, un déchet de tchagaï, ta donc y mago balambe, un là que ton en âge, mago balambe, Beijing, Kunan, Chadan, j'ai tabaché ça. Danser dans Domba de l'an, j'ai une chéros. 라지지 미시로스
Lesser.
어떤에 루지 말부터 간데 하는 요야 너바이나 아니 하는 집이 니신에서 바신 팀이 건데 신에도 말아지 데스 말아지 고그레스 게테상 아셔나나 데스 러면 온그 니고는 소진다 가둘라수 타지 라마다바니 랑전 수만하지 말베 어디 신에도 제바지 누디 손산디 전에 시비 제수도는 전에 주도 고마샤 주쇼주는 주는 주는 시비 너 왕기 주면 내가 시고 그래서 가게 주고 토바 이나는 한 정도 그래서 시비 가서 토비는 단식 동바 안에 샤주 셈비 동바당 하고 동바당 안에 단식 동바 두는 걸로 서서진 송거레스 제바도 자유 동안 당 하고 동바 여바 있나 하는 하고 자동포 그러 자동포나 안에 자 동바 살래야 돼요 아데 이나 생줄 준슈네 때 직가버지 그래스 자주 생다 제대로 줄지야 갈가버지 그래스 안에 서서지 거래서 인사 직가요 자동기 마고 발람비 연락이 동안나지 마고 발람 베이징 그나 샤동지 다버시데스 동샤도야다 예잔도야다 안지 원슈야다 어떤게 가서그래 이니시션 파래요로 어떻게 어때 서서지 거래서 당 하고 다시 동바들 라지제 임베시 어떠바도 로지라산 두주라산
Lesser, decent. So beginning on page 137 in the English, it states, it is taught in all vehicles and in general and in the mantra vehicle in particular that reliance on the teacher is very crucial. Consequently, once you enter the mantra path, you should follow the mantra explanations and practice a method of relying on the teacher that is even more specialized than what I've explained before. Then ripen your mind with initiations that come from pure tantric sources and observe properly at the risk of your life all the vows and pledges that you have received during your initiations. You can take the vow or pledge again if you are affected by a root infraction, but your mind will have been spoiled and it will be very difficult to give rise to good qualities. Therefore, specifically strive never to be tainted by root infractions and not to be soiled by secondary infractions. Even if you are tainted by these, purify yourself of them with confession and restraint, since vows and pledges are the foundation of the path. So in here we find the beginning of this, similar to the explanation in the perfection vehicle, that the foundation is the teacher. So we find that in the mantra path, the reliance on the teacher is slightly different than what we found previously explained in the perfection vehicle instructions on the relationship or how one relies upon a spiritual friend or a teacher. So here it says it's slightly different, and then Rinpoche quoted the Atisha's lamp, and it says, let me get back to that. I'm just, it says one should please the teacher. In order to receive the precept or initiation, one should please one's teacher with various offerings. So I'm not going to be able to quote it directly at this moment, but I'm going to get back to that. So in Atisha's lamp, if you just go to the lamp, you'll find it, and it's within the last 10 stanzas of the lamp. So then there's a slight difference in the relationship that one has in the tantric vehicle with the teacher. And then it says you should follow mantra explanations and practice a method of relying on a teacher that's more specialized than that of the perfection vehicle. And it says then ripen your mind with initiation. So take the initiations, and then when one takes an initiation, there are various pledges and vows that one takes. So the bodhisattva vows, the various pledges or commitments, and then the tantric vows. So it says to observe properly at the risk of one's life these commitments and vows that one has taken during the initiation. And it says you can take if you have a transgression, you can take the vow again, but your mind becomes spoiled. And if this happens, one should engage in practices of purification, such as acknowledgement of one's downfalls, or engaging in the 100,000 mantra, the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, doing 100,000 mantras, various purification practices, or confession of one's downfalls. So if one engages in a negativity or has an infraction relative to vows, then one should purify them through confession and restraint, as it says here. And in here, the root infractions, we have the root bodhisattva vows, but there are also the root tantric vows that we find in the yogic and highest yoga tantras. Cheek, Jason. And then here where it says your mind will have been spoiled, this means that it will become difficult for one to have the generation of bodhicitta or engage in the stages such as the generation and completion stage practices. So mind is spoiled means that it'll be difficult to have these realizations.
judo koma le dena jirin yimar jirin jirin sa da karsa go sana jirin ta da so man ba danga to le shiwa yuare jiwa yuare dene
pardon
jiwa pado son yo man ba jishi pado son mo kanu na ba tumbe ane long ma shuna ti so ma jun shin jishi pado son mo kanu na ba tumbe hai nenju gonsha bi nenju de jila jirin la jirin marba de judo koma la ma do nenju judo sha ju shu ju ma no da jirin ta chwa ju gu la ji ba do no gu la ji chwa ju gu la che je shi ba do so mo kan do na ba tyen ba gon bi hai nenju ro durin ma yin bi hai nenju de jirin la go sa jirin 다때 가르서는 당아서 오 되는 정도다. 네. 다 오니 당아서 장오마서 그 지여서도 보면 장오마. 못 돼요. 장오마. 못 되지. 전도스 맞은 장오마 되길 다 가도래 요지로. 당아서 하게 되거든. 오니도 배질래. 어디 봐서는 와.
에바 용바.
에 로장이서 그러죠.
사와 에용.
이은이들어.
오케이.
어때 자원만 넣으면 또 같이 두선 두바 태디어서 두바 어때 하게 지린 공부를 된 두바 주소나 네 노도 오만 주운들래 안에 뒤에 자꾸 얘기 자꾸 어때 자꾸 두선 나로래 주문도 하게 어때 내가 중요하면 노린스 어찌린 시간도 어떤 진짜 제시 받을 수 없는 거는 나바 템비 템바 공부 다 했네 어떤지 어떤 도린 기절했어 도린 기절 tellatene anna rojangulundu oman shkone dori zakod nolul shoyun diten dori to wajumandwa jirin duwaze watne chede gosale
the Jerim, the Jewa dan Bardo, Pitch Gong Gongjao.
아직은 저와 죽을 나지 봐도 롱글 나지 저와 죽을 나지 송도 송.
오케이.
나는 아주 쉬워대 와대 저와 죽을 나지 소리 말다.
Okay.
시간하면 돈이고 안에 돈이 냐바자 잡아들래. 안에 저 죽을 나지 말봐. 안에 대 봐도 그 다 봐도 롱글 나지. 되네 저와 내가 그 죽을 는 거야지. 다시 어떤 중에서 말이야.
Okay. Okay. So in the Tantrayana, so here let's see, it says, train in good instructions on either the yoga with signs in the context of the lower tantras, or the generation stage in context of highest yoga tantra. After this training has been made firm, train well in either yoga without signs in the context of the lower tantras, or the yoga of the completion stage in the context of the highest yoga tantra. So here they're making a comparison to the lower tantra practice of the yoga with signs and the generation stage of the highest yoga tantra, because this is where they begin. So the lower tantras begin with the yoga with signs, and the highest yoga tantras begin with the generation stage. And then the yoga without signs are compared to the completion stage, because that's the second part of the lower tantric practices, the yoga without signs, and the second part of the highest yoga tantra is the completion stage. So in looking at the generation and completion stage practices, the generation stage is what causes the transformation of the birth, death, and the intermediate state into pure bodies of the emanation body, the enjoyment body, and the Dharmakaya. So these states are transformed through the generation stage, and then into completion stage practices are transformed during these practices. So in the completion stage, one is able to utilize the various channels. We have a central channel that runs from the crown down to the secret area. So from there's the channels that run and the wind goes through. The wind enters from our nostril areas. So, and it goes in. There's a central channel that then goes from to the crown of the head, and then down in a straight line to our lower area. So this is the central channel. And then there's a right channel and a left channel. And these channels have various chakra areas, or chakra points. And at the chakra points, there are knots that are obstructions, or that are bound, that disallow or don't allow the flowing of the properly of the winds. So at these chakra points, there are and that are connected. So there's a right and a left channel, and these chakra points that have knots around them that are bound. So by practicing these, the completion stage, one is able to utilize the various drops and winds to transform the birth, death, and intermediate state into the pure bodies by undoing these knots through various practices and meditations. So one does so in the completion stage practice, where there is this undoing of these knots that are bound, and the generation stage is what creates that completion stage practice. So it's generating the preliminary practices to be able to then actually undo the knots and so forth. So it's generation of that potential. So the generation stage practices are dealing with the state of birth, which then gets transformed into the emanation body, and then the intermediate state, which then transforms into the enjoyment body, and then the death state, which transforms into the Dharmakaya, or the truth body. So this is how the generation and completion stages transform one's being from its ordinary state into those pure states. If I missed anything, I apologize greatly, but I think I got most of everything.
ngano wa za uma do ji ngot ne yo ba za uma ha do no wo mi ji do wa da ka do za uma ngo de ma den ma de ba de ma da roma da jamani za uma de ba te de yo res ha de ji wo res ma da ane chen ri sha do da ji ji wo re de za do ka de do te ba ina ha ne ji ja roma da jama uma wa do ka de do
So the central channel begins here at this point and moves from the crown and then down in a forward fashion. And we find in the many deities there's an eye here, and this eye is where the central channel begins. And in the central channels in the Tantrayana, there are explanations of knots binding all of the chakras at various points in the central channel that has a right and a left channel next to it. And we have to question this. We have to see if scientists are able to use their machines and see if these things are there or aren't there. So we also can look at what science's view is, but this is the tantric view of our internal system, is that we have this central channel, right and left channel. The winds flow, central channel beginning here to the crown, going down to the secret area, and that the winds are unable to flow properly because of these knots that are bound at the chakra points.
This
is what's stated in the Tantrayana about the generation and completion stage practices. Okay, two chena. So, and then those are the higher tantras, generation and completion stage. The lower tantras, we have the yoga with and without signs. So the yoga with signs is the meditation on deity yoga, which is a meditation which can be a calm abiding or not a calm abiding. So this is the yoga with signs. Yoga without signs is once one arrives at a special insight relative to the deity yoga. So the deity yoga is transformed into this special insight, and at that point it becomes a yoga without signs. So this is the 13th point about Tantrayana. So now we're at 14. Juji Garde.
Juji the range tip Jusero, Jusen, Jusen Saji Juji Sarawata. That range tip Gubakaras.
You know, Jujipa Garde.
Jujiba Teresa.
Jujipa, Jusamba Nga, Jujipa Garde.
Jujiba Tere. Jujiba Donga Nikar, Jubala. That Jujiba water Dodanga. Dolnyale Jet and Hale. Jogo resident sonoro.
That's so.
The Kung Susons, Conquer Cabayores. What Jujiba Jiter and Gubata, Koni. Gubate, the range taking in a Pentuchayores. Jebu Chungul Pentuchayore and Dini Pentuchayore, Jebu Chembel Pentuchayores. Range taking in a Gubaje. That then the range goes on at Susan was that. Susan was that London was Chungun de Jevison Shivas. London de Kung Kabato was London. Then don't do it. Don't want you to vision those as you. What the Kuntu is, what the world massaging you.
Okay, so now we've arrived at number 14. The 14th point has two sections in it. The first section is the reason for it. So it's a little different. It could be translated as reason again, but reason or purpose for these stages. It shows how it's beneficial for the student to engage in the small, beneficial for the student to engage in the medium. The stage of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, stage of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the stage of the path for beings of great capacity. So it says why, because it's beneficial for them. And then who said this? So this is what 14th point, why and who said this. And we find that in the Tisha's lamp, it states to understand that there are persons of three capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly identifying their characteristics. So Atisha said this. Where did Atisha's source come from? And Atisha's source is the sutra, actual sutras of Buddha. So it's tracing the source and also the reason for it. So there's all of these explanations of the Sutrayana and being the cause of Tantrayana and so forth in the small, medium, and great. So the purpose is because it's beneficial to lead in these stages, but also we find a source. And so this is the 14th point. Okay. So then it states that one goes through these, students are led in stages through these instructions. First, the teaching, the stage of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, and then the stage of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and then the stage of the path for beings of great capacity with the two sides, and then going from the perfection vehicle into the tantric vehicle. So where is the source for this instruction? And we find the source being Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment. And I think Rinpoche quoted again, understand that there are persons of three capacities, small, middling, and great. I shall write clearly identifying their characteristics. So we find the source of this instruction in Atisha's lamp. And the quote previously is, then to receive the preceptor initiation, you must please an excellent spiritual teacher through service, valuable gifts, and the like, as well as through obedience. So that was the quote about the Tantrayana relationship with a spiritual friend that I left out before. So I wanted to have everything included.
That's
it. Shugugu. Okay, so the lamp for the path to enlightenment presents the body of such a path. These stages of the path also instruct you in this way. This is the 14th point that's made on page 138 in the English. So the lamp for the path to enlightenment presents the body of such a path, these stages of the path. What stages of the path? The stages of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, the stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the stages of the path for beings of great capacity. It says here, also instruct you in this way. The great elder taught this in other texts as well. So here, these stages that are were previously explained are found in Atisha's lamp, and the instructions are the same.
어떤 가서 따발로대도 중원대도 조조 지부송도 시바샤세데 랑르는 송거레스 대나진 랑리 치부게 티베이스 말이야 랑리지 장대지도 치바오 용제도 조체베 송데스 다 조조지게 버자 젠달이 요레스 젠달이 송 요레스 조체베 송데 대제제 랑지 루토 뒤발레스 대제가 랑지 루토 뒤바세 버자 주요 말와 what Sanji Mecha Chawanga, Sanji Mecha Chawanga, Lama Shanchu Tuduna, Shanchu Dula Ralebe, Druba Helen Nibusha, Tanju Pensun Tubilu, Shindu Nyanga, Nyajujin, Shejan Shindu Nyanga Yu, Dula Baby, Nushas, what the land of the Junjin was, Tibachimi Lanji, Drudo Dubas, as you are what the Sanji Mecha Chawanga. Sanji Mecha Chawanga said that Sanji the Marbe Sanji the Jun Quincy, Yuan Quinde, Sawa Tashimba, Neva Tashimba, Chamba Tashimbi, Sanji Guntua, Neva Yoba Ina, Lamen Shanju to Lenas, Neva Yoba Ina, Tetabi Shanchu the Brugurs, Lanya Legurs, Drula Rale Base, and then cast Joe Chongo to Tumulan, did the Tumulan, Chibi Lan to Drugure, Nyaleje Gures, Drula Rale Be, Druba Him, Druba Tonan Hibishas, that Jibichuni chose on land, the Druba Hibichin, Yale Abijena, and then Sanji won't talk this, or the Sungu Hibisha. Tanju Pensun to be le Shindo Niaga Nijudan, Tangasu Tawajet and Jobachu, May Lieutenant, Aging Noble Labe, May Lieutenant Yoris, Ne Tanjuru, Tawang Mozuma, and then never cause on Bataman Rusaroda, Tawang Mozuma, the La Tawajet and Jobachu to the Marba. Shindu Nyega, Nyejune, Nyebakawa. Shindu Nyebaka made it and got to Toyo Ares. Taba Shugul the Tuakali Cabres. Shejan Shindu Nyekayu, Drula, Tanangatu made it and got to Lava Cautele, and then got to Sazajine, Chibichungo to Tumulanaji, did the Tumulanaji, Chibi Lanaji, Yabaji Ures. The Jiva in the Jiva Shamalaya, what the song is. What about the Jila?
So the lamp for the I'll just reread it again. The lamp for the path to enlightenment presents the body of such a path. These stages of the path also instruct you in this way. The great elder taught this in other texts as well. So here is going to be a quote from a different text written by Lord Atisha. And it's called The Concise Method of Achieving the Mahayana Path. If you wish to attain unsurpassable enlightenment, which has inconceivable greatness, be intent on practice and achieve its heart, for enlightenment depends upon practice. As this body of perfect leisure and opportunity was very difficult to obtain, and once obtained will be very difficult to possess again, make it meaningful by striving at practice. Here, Lord Atisha is stating that if one wishes to achieve complete Buddhahood, which has inconceivable greatness, and Rinpoche mentioned 5 greatnesses of Buddhahood. I'm going to have to check what those are. There are 5 greatnesses. I just quickly tried to, but I don't want to forget the other information. So we're going to have a break soon, so I'll try and retrieve those. Which has inconceivable greatness. So in that greatness, we have the excellent qualities of the Buddha. And there's these 5 categories. The yunten nga, nga ma chu the sanje yunten nga la sun.
Sanje yunten chenpi yunten, tse yunten, nubi yunten, tsu marbe. Tsawa tashinba, nuba tashinba, chenpa tashinba, tangji chenpa rami yunru. And then tsawa senje tangji rami, kinji chenpa yunru, tsawa tashinba, nuba tashinba. Sanje ka jena hu nuba yunru.
That's so. So,
前进的说是，我等着了那这个长久远在没有。
okay, so not just 5. Buddha has many excellent qualities, but Rinpoche was listing them, and I was just joking. So Buddha has many excellent qualities, inconceivable qualities, such as the inconceivable knowing, the omniscience of the Buddha's mind, the ability to know, inconceivable compassion and love, love and immeasurable or inconceivable love and compassion for all beings, and inconceivable abilities, ability to do anything. So these are some of the inconceivable greatnesses of the Buddha. But Rinpoche said there are many greatnesses that the Buddha has, not just to the not only those. Those are examples of some. So then it says, be intent on practice and achieve its heart, for enlightenment depends on practice. What is the practice? The practice, if you want to achieve enlightenment, are the practice pathways that are shared in common with beings of small capacity, then the pathways that are shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the pathways with beings of great capacity. So these are the practices that one depends upon to achieve its heart, and the heart here is Buddhahood. So if one wishes to achieve Buddhahood, then one has to rely upon these practices of the common paths and so forth. It says, as the body of perfect leisure and opportunity was difficult to obtain, and once obtained will be very difficult to possess again, make it meaningful by striving at practice. It says now, we currently have this body of leisure, and before in the teachings we went over the 8 leisures and the 10 opportunities, or leisure and endowments, 8 leisures, 10 endowments, 8, here it's leisure and opportunity. So we possess this currently. We in our hands have the 8 leisures and 10 opportunities. So we need to make sure that we strive at practice. It says, even though we have this currently, it's easy to lose and difficult to obtain. So once we have it, we should make use of it, and we currently have it. So we should. And how do we make, it says, make it meaningful by striving at practice. Again, that word practice up here and down here mean exactly the same thing. The practices of the pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity, the pathways shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and then the pathways for beings of great capacity. So here it's mentioned twice, practice, and that inside that word practice, it's referring to those stages.
我就大学当时大的嘛特别是入到对吧的吧样家，这大专呢做了来，对啦呢熊于这，呢这个人当没有吧，第一年的对吧，但是可以叫做签的来，给拉达熊就拿，这个人当没有吧，CB 7年中华下学当时，他这个说过的，当俺做专把就做了状况的有吧，伊那。 안그 정확한 주야 그거 중소는 뒤에 중과 있나 안그 정확한 주로다 정확한 마디 바지 주로다 대나지 다나가서 안에 그 전달에 가서 니와 내손스고 말ပဲ내손 전달 주야게 안에 라자는 네바 가서 요아레스 건조선을 저도 제도 그래 너가 지금 수지 간도 제도 손도 그래 안에 디발 샤나 제도로 들리제네 나송 전달에 주야게 다시 제거레스 어디서 말해 제타전에 전달에 주빌라네 내전 버마의 example 정한 요게 맞대 그 정한 파타야 줘야지 돼서 중소나 저거로다 제가想的么봐 디네는 정한되네 저버터 저거로 왔어 example 드나진 그 자주 첸델레 게이라다 내주나 그 자주들 줘야게 들기 그거 중소나 돼서 중소나 아니 제가 얘도 뭐냐 봐 어떨래 치는 집에 바로 들어오는 들 타지 우레스 시에도 어디든지 집 중고도 동원한테 말하면 돼
그래서
오늘 맞전도 라비 주딘다 멤비 젤은 네바이 셈비 동바 로존에 파르신 로와티 타마데 집 총은 두모 나리다 리다 두모 니가 요번나도
Listen.
막이 거주소나 자주도 그는 막이 좀 수준 간도제도 수 대바다 샤나제네 내송 저런 저도 제고를 봉투 제고를 되네 하비 주린 질라바다 딩은지 질라바 돈이 싫어 라바 숨고발라 되네 kuyu tsorale tato bache uwares wade denye dege jibun chungwa da tumo la jire bata dinda tumo la tema da mbudwe.
Just as when a chance arises for prisoners to flee from prison, they flee from that place, as their goals are not the same as others. So too, if an opportunity arises to cross over this great ocean of cyclic existence, you emerge from this household of existence as your goals are not the same as others. Taking up the bodhisattva vow through abiding in the practice of refuge, higher discipline, and the basis of the aspirational spirit of enlightenment, practice properly in stages with what ability you have, all the deeds of the bodhisattvas, the 6 perfections, and the like. So here in the Tibetan, it goes through basically this goes through in the stages of the pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity, and the pathways shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the pathways shared in common with beings of great capacity, and then their goals. So here it says, just when a chance arises for a prisoner to flee from prison, they flee from that place as their goals are not the same of others. So if a prisoner has an opportunity to get out of jail, he or she just immediately flees and seizes that opportunity to be freed from jail. So if we look at the lower realms of cyclic existence and look at them as being in jail, we in our hands have the key to free ourselves from those lower realms. We have the key of the pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity. That key is the practice of going for refuge to the 3 jewels, of ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and acknowledging our downfalls if we have transgressed those negativities. So by relying upon these practices, we're freed from the lower realms. So these practices are like a key that frees us from the jail of the lower realms of cyclic existence. And then in the teachings for beings of medium capacity, when it speaks of crossing over the great ocean of cyclic existence, and again, looking at first, if one's goal is to get out of the lower realms, then that's a goal that's different than others' goal. As a prisoner's goal is to get out of prison, that's a different goal than others. They have their mind intent on getting out. Their mind is intent in the small capacity on getting out of the lower realms. And then in the medium capacity, one is intent on getting out. Our mind is set on getting out of cyclic existence. So on the stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, one does so by engaging in the practice of the 3 highest higher trainings. This becomes the key that frees one from the jail of cyclic existence. So the practice of the highest higher training in ethics of renunciation, the highest higher training in concentration, and then the highest higher training in wisdom. So then this becomes the practice that unlocks the door of cyclic existence and allows one to be free from samsara, the household of existence. And so this is the goal. So that's where Rinpoche stopped as far as explaining. Jibu din lapsai, jibu Chenmo lama.
Jibu Chenmo denna yoma dabandua. Jibu labi sudin tan, jibu je. 하비 수진. 저도 다 대신 도모마이 저도 되는도 sentient tantric 동에 sentient 동에 tantric 동에 산다네. 안에 사지를 저 출을 저 근을 저 저도 인제데. 하비 수진 라바 당아도 하바 송은 안테 나부도와. 이나 자주 수진 라바도 어떤 디노 도모라도 대선한 디서.
레서
다 maybe 질 never is 한세던 주세 자주 센들라 한세던 주세니 말베 안에 maybe 질 never is 한세지 안에 샘비 가자 샘비 동바 라종신스 안에 한세대 아부 종손 안에 자주 샘비 동바 렌토로 샹주 셈비 동바 자 동주제의 예시 루송이 안에 샹주 셈비 동바 좀 우레스 샹주 주도 생제 샹주 셈비 동바 여바 장제 사제 두고 말스 네 신를 하고 그랬어 네 최단제 나바단제 동바 주바 상자와 되베 셔러지 바르듯이 말라바자고 신를 말라바 사제 두고 말스 신주 소소도 템퍼바진다 어떻게 만들어 시즈 버바진 안 하바송 어떻게 나오고 그래서 이사를
Lung got the Julama.
다 대전 루발라는 거들
Okay.
아디샤그송
Okay.
아디샤그송들
Okay.
송갈대도
So then, moving to the stage of the path sharing common with beings of great capacity. So it would look like the first paragraph would be the small, the second paragraph being medium, and then this last paragraph, taking up the bodhisattva vow through abiding in the practice of refuge. So here, this practice of refuge is specific to the Mahayana. So it's a specialized kind of refuge because it's a refuge with the basis of it being the Mahayana type of refuge, going for refuge for the sake of all sentient beings. So here, when it says in the practice of refuge, it's taking up the bodhisattva vow through abiding in the practice of refuge. It's inferred that is the specialized refuge of the Mahayana. Higher ethical discipline, this would be very similar to the higher training in ethics. So this would be a teaching that would be shared in common with beings of medium capacity found in the great capacity pathway. So this is just mentioned in here as the foundation. So this is shared in common practice. Then it says, and the basis of the aspirational spirit of enlightenment. When looking at the spirit of enlightenment, which is the translation of bodhicitta, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment, all the same thing. The mind that aspires to enlightenment has two categories: aspirational mind that aspires to enlightenment, or let me use their words, aspirational spirit of enlightenment, and aspiration and engaged spirit of enlightenment. So there are two categories. Here it's speaking of this aspiring bodhicitta, or aspiring spirit of enlightenment. It says, practice properly in stages with what ability you have all the deeds of the bodhisattvas, the six perfections, and the like. So it's saying just having this aspiring bodhicitta is not enough. One should take the bodhisattva vow, and then aspirational bodhicitta, or aspirational spirit of enlightenment, transforms into engaged spirit of enlightenment when one takes the bodhisattva vows, the 18 root vows and the 46 secondary vows. So this is what it says, all the deeds of the bodhisattvas. So those deeds are, again, 18 root, 46 secondary bodhisattva vows, the six perfections and the like. So the six perfections of generosity, ethics, patience, effort, concentration, and wisdom. Or we could also look at them in the bigger form of the 10 perfections. So I think I listed all six just now. If I missed one, I'm sorry. But everyone knows the six perfections. So these are the practices one engages in to achieve unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment, to achieve Buddhahood. Rinpoche, the dead school. So we're going to take a short break.
Shene la tong nen yu gong xie song xin si da gang de shang ju ju de sen jie men sen de ju sen de yab jung su na an jie ba jian na sis ten per ba jun li jian na sis per ba jun du na tao de xie le ni gong gu res tao de xie le ni de shene de la tong ni gong gu res wo de le de de.
So then it says, cultivate the heart of method and wisdom, insight, meditative serenity, and their unification. So if we look at it in the most great, vast way, we look at it relative to the 10 perfections, as far as practice in this category. In the medium way, the six perfections, and then in the most condensed way, the union of method and wisdom. So here, this is the practices of the great capacity. These are the practices of great capacity.
타다 셔러 니보강 신의 라통내 주공 시송신 타다 셔러 니보강 타그 니부터 신내래 셔러 니보 라통레스 what do know what the 야부공 거레스 인사 말봐 시송신 시송신 딩은지 출로래장 딩은지 초지 로래장 딩은 초지 로베지 노인지래 로래장 너무 얘기 소리 좀서 다 대공도도 제르지 딩은지 출로를 다 된라는 데 딩은지 출로 도 주지라 봐 출로래 도 될는데 송샤스 너무 얘기 소리 좀서 안에 사제도 한번 해지 해좀 고그레스 해좀이 돌리 좀 그레스 해지 좀 주시 발라 되는 좀 그레스 두비상주 센텐샤스 안에 상주 해지긴 되고 안에 상주 센텐부 제고레스 현센도 주세 걸로 템부 제고레스 시비 논슈 들라 마차 시비 논슈 도와라 마차바 차바도 봉고레스 말이야 세바 고알에 내반주가 뉴스마고 뉴스마 야부중구나 디도알 차고 말아 동행지 동행 동행 차반주지 동행 두줄 내반주가 뉴스마고 그래스 더 마차 용순 진레 자주쇼 진제 쇼소 다그 고알에 그 도알 때네 용순 진비 데바텔레 시비 데라 자주시 데빌레 도다니 가제 라지 타도니 제분은 디 라부 마르베 그 넌 바비 데바 넌 그주 바비 데바 오시비 그 데비 레는 녀모 그주 도서 걸로 자주시 들 냐바뉴 나바뉴 상바도 그레스
맞아
너는 젤레 자주쇼 대소는 변소스 데비는 최진은 싫어하는 어떤 변소스 보고 그레스
Tepa, Sherab, Samba,
Tebi kaza.
Tebi do.
Ne dün sayıyor. Da tebi ne şerak ne jimbi ne o ne dün sayıyor. Da kadar lantu siz bir başın tutan ne marbeta. Pazun tu. Lama sanje dan yang kusa. Lama de sanje de jiba yima tane kobaji ures. Lama sanje danyang ku. Lama de sanje ngune yin yabaji de kobaji ures. Tenga sujini de zu mawji da. Lama sanje danyang ku sa. Lami kujun karu la meguji nyama mashena. Shenla juju menyu sen megu de la neten jus o de zu yimaru da. Lama de sanje yin da ben da. 네 상지 인양 살다바이나 상지기 실로 좀 그래서 그 소나 마트 냐마샤 좀 추용 그래 추자다 어떤 비저지 그래 라마 상지 때바이나 들라되네 네 실로 용 그래 손대서 말이야 라마 상지 다냐 그 대대 단치 동반에서 다 라마 대대비 단치 동반도 저 소다그 동반 카 샹생그 동반 카그 동반 단치 동반도 저 그걸로 용수 장라 라도 준사 다시 도바송아 준도 야버지 고레스 bombasan유 ongo bonwa sawa lami deji 용수 도사 bonwa da sawa 두근걸로 ongo 게 lama de 가디언 된 도거로다 르가센 나바타스 르가센 르지데바 나기데바 센지데바 두근걸로 다 그레스
Lesso,
디지털 나다 오주도 잡무도
Lesso,
로봇 모두스 대답이 아니 다시 도바 야부 송게 되데 초도 도모 모두도 해야지 신카도 그래서 달라드네 도모 모두 용거래 아니 축 모두 용거래 신카들 컨지그레 라이스 지그레 모두 지그레 강가 지그로 됐나 요거데 다시 도마도 송발라드네 축 모두 제 용거래 도모 모두 제 용거 송된 사람 모두나 텐진라 레숑유스 텐진라 레숑 초능요소 조발레 뇨도 모두도 토조와사 다 텐진라 다 지네 세나도 하동도 말베 근데 초능요소 조조와 Nyodo, Modu to what the nigga, you think got sounds on the Sanju Kumonjubu to this. Nyodo, Modu to Joroa. Theatre Sanga, Tune is the Tabis, San down the Tabinian Chevina, and then Sanga Sul never is. Tune, she's on base or Jujuba this wood.
Rinpoche, the cheek, it's up a food last the Nima Shar. Jeez. Cheek Selpium. The Lama Dongs, the Sanjay Chipa, the Nima Shar, Chan
the tradition that Lama Sanji Tana, Lama Sanji in the Mahina, Sanji, but Tana Kubaji Wures, Shelo Yungurs, Conrad Bajadro.
Okay. First, okay, so now we're on, there's a quote now from Bodhibhadra. It's the chapter on the collections of concentration, Samadhi Sambhara Parivarta. It says, first make firm your spirit of perfect enlightenment. So here, this is speaking of the mind that aspires to enlightenment, or bodhicitta. One makes it firm through practices of the there are two kinds, aspiring spirit of enlightenment and engaged spirit of enlightenment. So make firm this bodhicitta, which has arisen from the strength of compassion. So this arises out of compassion. Do not be attached to enjoying the resources of cyclic existence. So one should stop being attached to the happiness of samsara, or the happiness, polluted happiness, the contaminated happiness of cyclic existence, and turn your back on grasping. So here, this is similar to the teachings, the pathways that are shared in common with beings of medium capacity. And Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment, he states that under those who seek peace for themselves alone, turning away from worldly pleasures and avoiding destructive actions, are said to be of middling capacity. So here it says, do not be attached to enjoying the resources of cyclic existence and turn your back on grasping. So it's very similar to Atisha's lamp in the medium scope section. So here it's speaking of renouncing cyclic existence, generating a desire to definitely emerge from cyclic existence and the different types of suffering of cyclic existence, the suffering of change, pervasive, compounded suffering. Wishing to definitely emerge from those experiences or states. So this is similar to that. And then it says, endowed with perfect jewels such as faith, respect your guru who is equal to the Buddha. So perfect jewels, faith being an example. There's other jewels of wisdom and generosity and other perfections. When we look at the 6 or 10 perfections, these are all jewels that one can possess. Faith being one of them. And faith in what? Faith in the Buddha, in the teacher. And it says, respect your guru who is equal to the Buddha. And there's been a lot of discussion previously about this, and whether or not the teacher is or isn't the Buddha doesn't matter. If one looks at him or her as a Buddha, then one develops the qualities and the blessings. If one looks at him or her as a Buddha, then one receives all of the blessings as that one would receive as if he or she was engaging in activities relative to the real Buddha. So making offerings and any activities around one's teacher. If one looks at him or her as a real Buddha, then the merit created is the same as if he or she is. So it's saying, respect your guru who is equal to the Buddha. Whether or not he or she is or isn't a Buddha, it doesn't matter. If we look at him or her as a Buddha, we get the blessings that and the merit, or the virtue of doing things in relation to a Buddha. With the pledges that this guru taught, so there are various pledges that are given within the Tantrayana system, and there are commitments and vows. So in the other systems, so if we look at it from a vows perspective, there are the 3 types of vows: individual liberation vows, bodhisattva vows and tantric vows. So the pledges the guru has taught, this word pledge can just be referring to ethical behavior in general. Just a translator's note, it seems in translating what Rinpoche is saying, this word pledge, and I might be mistaken, but it seems as though this word pledge is referring to general ethics. As Rinpoche mentioned, the different ethics of the individual liberation, bodhisattva, and tantrayana vows. It says, with the pledges that this guru taught, joyously persevere in your meditation. So engage in rigorous effort in practice and engage and make a lot of effort in keeping the pledges and vows clean and pure. It says, joyously persevere in your meditations. Receive through your guru's kindness the bestowal of initiations, both vase and secret. So here, some of the types of initiations that one can get in the tantric system. The vase, a secret initiation. Purifying body, speech, and mind, such practitioners are fit for attainment. So by purifying one's body, speech, and mind, by engaging in practices that do so, one's body becomes like a fertile ground or a foundation. One, a person becomes like a fertile ground or foundation for these practices to emerge. Like a field is the foundation or ground from which corn can grow, rice can grow, flowers can grow. Likewise, our person, our person with pure body, speech, and mind becomes a vessel fit for attainments. This is what is meant, purifying body, speech, and mind. Such practitioners are fit for attainment. So by purifying this basis becomes fit to achieve realizations. By completing the collections that arise from the branch of concentration, they will quickly achieve the supreme attainment. This is the way of mantra. Here, speaking of different concentration levels and utilizing meditation and concentration through these stages. Rinpoche mentioned calm abiding and special insight. So these are the 14 points that are made, and the reason that students are led through these stages or these vehicles. So the reason that the students are led through these stages, I need to say both words, vehicles that are stages. Because there's the vehicle, translators note, small, medium, and great vehicles. Those are called vehicles. Why students are, this is the 14 points that show why students are led through stages of those vehicles. So we have the Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment in English. We have it in Chinese. So we should study it very well so we can understand these points. So if we look at the English text and read it, and then think a lot about it, then our thinking will become greater. And then going to the root text of the Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment, that's compared to an ocean. An ocean, because an ocean contains all the waters of the world that eventually all the waters of the world eventually end up in an ocean. Likewise, Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment is like an ocean, because all of the collections of texts of the pronouncements of Lord Buddha and the authentic Indian commentaries are contained within that one text in a summarized way. So it's compared to an ocean. So we can then, through our studies, look at this root text and understand it.
goba to kuni what the lari chibu kuro
Kong.
goba sena ngone goba
Real.
benefit benefit
Nyone.
goba sena
Gonga Mepuchi.
benefit goba la woro
Okay. Then
this is a good kanjun due tenjun due is kong de marbe long jong on je bi ji dos what no yo da london what den the name of da就从人家吃下的阿弟下个送我的话真都卡巴多是long jong on je bi ji do lo what the patient there what the
So now we're at the section called The Purpose, and it's page 139. So we went through, the previous section was the actual reason, and then now the purpose. And the words seem similar and sound similar in Tibetan as well, just as a translator's note. So in this section there's going to be two things that are gone over. First is the benefit of these stages, like more of the benefits or its purpose. But Rinpoche said the benefit, if we had a word that was benefit and purpose, so that, and then where do we find this? Yes, we know that we're stating these are points made in Atisha's Land for the Path to Enlightenment, but what are the exact texts that the Buddha wrote? Where are in the sutra teachings do we find this reason or this purpose? So these are the two things that are going to be gone over in this next section, and it's relative to the Prajnaparamita teachings themselves. And there's going to be something prepared in the future from the Drepung Losaling text. Rinpoche showed me at break. So it gets into this section here deals with something found in the Prajnaparamita texts. These 2 points. So there's a question and answer. This is in a question and answer format in the text. So first there's a question. On page 139, it's to purpose.
Niba gubane da tombo chawanden leung kete jebe chonding ki chukur na jebe chimbi phandu yina jebe chimbi la ri de shebi chume jebe chonding da tomo la ri she tanye jegu she nas what the question thing question jebe chongo da tomo la ri de tomo la jebe chimbi la ri is ndigros jebe chimbi ngondo res and tema evajan chongo tomo de tomo momashi go jusen karas towatere no koshenje
Lesso.
ta nyeba le do watendre no
Lesso.
tedra tomo na je ju jane ne ngaba sangala jogo des amare ne ode ma chebo chongo chonde da tomo la she tanye je she tanye jegu shena zhuwaji kushinro zhuwaji da len de ne do kus enso jebu song susu shed tribala goba chimni yudes
Lesso.
jebu chongo de tomo na ndi da tomo la jebu chimi la susu shen shebala goba ni yudes goba ni yude de dar jebu chondi da tomo lo maje bayang rani jebu chenbo kile be ngabi ngaje jongba dansa jebu chongo da tomo la de da tomo la odene maje bayina ane jebu chongo da tomo de da tomo la mago baje na jebu yin ngaje je anya ga yo de ka che ji res
Lesso.
go ba ji je
Lesso.
lo ra de ta song la pen cho ho sa jebu chongo da tomo la de da tomo la jebu chimi la ti bayina ane lo chongo jebu chongo le pen to jebu yo ren di la pen to jebu yo re jebu le pen to jebu yo re
Ale, so pento.
pen to jebu do
Lesso.
benebet jebu do
Lesso.
what esa ni thing but
Okay. So here, the purpose. If the teachings for the persons of small and medium capacities are prerequisites for the person of great capacity, they may as well be considered stages for the path of the person of great capacity. Why use the expression stages of the path shared shared with the persons of small and medium capacity? So this is the qualm that's being brought up. So what's the point of using this word shared in common? Why use this? Why not just say it's a stage of the path? And it says the reply is that there are two great purposes for differentiating these three types of persons and guiding students accordingly. First of all, it destroys the presumption of asserting that you are a person of great capacity despite not having developed the states of mind common to persons of small and medium capacities. So here one could have this great pride arise and say, I am a person of great capacity, and not even have any of these common practices which are prerequisites. These are the preliminaries, because they are preliminary. Here in the first qualm, it's stating that there are the preliminaries or prerequisites for them. So why not just say they are the stages of them? And here it's showing the first reason is because there's a negativity that pride could arise, and one could think that I'm a person of great capacity and not have any of the previous practices, which are the small capacity and medium capacity practices. And then it says, two, it is of benefit for those whose minds have the greatest, medium, and least capacity. How does it benefit them? Even the two persons of higher capacities must seek high status and liberation. So it is not wrong to teach students of medium and great capacities the practices that develop these attitudes of persons of small and persons of medium capacity. They will develop good qualities. So here it's showing the benefit. So it's beneficial for those who have these different capacities or levels of mind to have it taught in this way, because there are individual realizations that happen as a byproduct of going through those stages in common, but that are individual realizations or results of each of those categories that are exclusive to or not exclusive to that person's goal. I hope I'm not adding in too many words to make this make sense. So there are, to reach that person's goal, but each of those have individual realizations in and of themselves and are pathways for an individual itself. So it's beneficial. Here it's stating that even for the persons of the two persons of higher capacities must seek high status and liberation. So it is not wrong to teach students of medium and great capacities the practice that develop the attitudes for the person of small capacity and medium capacity. So this person of great capacity, it's beneficial for them, and they will achieve these results of higher realm and results of liberation. So there is benefit to teach them what those other capacities strive for, and which are prerequisites for their ultimate goals.
What that Jibuson so table of Goba Chembani, that Jibu Chundi, Natomu, Lomajabaya, Jibu Chembo, Keren, Mabinaje, Yombi Shetan, Tiji, Jiburadi Tasun La Penchova was that Jiburadi Tasu, Jibu Chembo, Jibundi, Tamas Montele, Pentu Ganecheva, Chilu Ganeres, Ganes Pentu, Pen Chilu Nessa. Jibu Gomani La, Jibu Gomani, you parted the Shiva and Debasanga to Tibani, Jirova, Pang Tiba, the Pashi Tiba. When Nila, Motuta, Nila, and Motu Latami, doesn't to Google, Tabatu Google. Things was Chungo Tungulang, Modern Dogudua, Tabatu Togo Yita, Dinda Tungulang, was what to son Marbe. Penchulu, Comani Laws, you parted Shiva Tibata, Debasanga to Tibanila, and Chungo Tungulang, the Dinda Tungulang Google is good. Motu Tuba Gubes, Tabatuba Gubes. Motu Tuba goes on to Joe. Chowder Town, Maguchung, Twitin Town, and Tiba Shadan Shatu Marbe, Tabatuba Gutan, Jibendina Tumula, Tabasum, Gugres, what the Pajintibala Gugre, Sanga Dujitibala Gugres, Gubi, Joashai, Kanza, Chendi Nikalan, Teniji, Samba Juan, Temba Jundum Jushinsa. Jupari Jimmy Tibetan Sanga Dujitibani, Chungo Tumu Nazi Batan, Dita Tumu Samba Jambala, Junio Maris Gugres.
Lesser.
Lesser.
Lesser. Lesser.
Kanza Tamashi Inane, Kanza Tamashi Inane, Gomane Jean Jean, Gomane Jean Jean, Samba Gomam Matua, Goman Dui, Gaya Meva Yushirosa. Kanza Tamashi Inane, Kanza Tamashi Inane, Komane, Jean, Samba Koma Machilla, woman do you cook Kanza Tamashina, Chibichimbi Lanshada Santante, Chongo Tumu Nathan, Little Tumu San Matana, and Yente Yuayo Mare, Motu Yuayo Mare, Taba Yuayo Mare, Sanji Yuayo Mares, Kanganya Neji Wores, so the Marbe, have a Jewish Rosa. J'ai commis Kyoajen, j'ai commis Kyoajen là. Là, tout le monde atteint des jambes à Nasa, commis Kyoajen, ne pas jeter votre Chibichimbi. Tel Chibichungo de tout le monde, l'andi de tout le monde, l'atteint de Kulan Chekina, Nazalagina. Hane Chisimba, Hamaji Januto, une tête de Joa Juye, Oma. Chebana, Goma, Chibe, Chube, Rangi La Lejan, Jamba Medosa, Ralan, Takate, what the region of Chigina, Uma to say, Dedigre, Dedu Yungre, Taba Yungre, and the Tamas Sanji Gumon Yungre, Sanji Gunju Yungre, Debukanga Pension Yungres, what this one is about.
So again, there are two purposes for differentiating the three types of persons. So the first is that it destroys the presumption of asserting that you are a person of great capacity despite not having developed the states of mind common to those persons of small and medium capacities. So there's a problem of pride arising where one could say I'm a practitioner of great capacity but not have those previous common practices which are necessary. So there's this one issue that can arise. And the second is that it's beneficial. I'm going to use just translation because these words are they're harder for me to look at and translate through. So in this second point is that it's of benefit to the person of, it says the two higher, here it says even the two persons of higher capacities. That's referring to the practitioners of the causal perfection vehicle and practitioners of the resultant secret vehicle. So even they want to have, or it's good for them to have a rebirth into higher realms. And it's also good for them, and they want to have liberation. Even though their ultimate goal is complete Buddhahood in the causal and resultant the causal perfection vehicle and the resultant secret vehicle. So it's helpful, it's beneficial for them. So it's purposeful. So that this word in Tibetan, gupa, the need or purpose, it also could be translated as want. So they want to have a rebirth in the higher realms, and they want to have liberation. So here in the text it says, even the persons of higher capacities must seek high status and liberation. So it is wrong to teach students of medium and great capacities the practices that develop the attitudes of persons of small capacity and persons of medium capacity. It is not wrong. They will develop these good qualities. So these results that come from engaging, the results of the pathways for Shirdankan with persons of small capacity are excellent qualities. One achieves rebirth in the higher realms through engaging in ethics, which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and by acknowledging one's downfalls, one achieves rebirth in the higher realms. This is an excellent quality. This is something that a practitioner of the two higher vehicles would wish for or want. The next is the practices, the pathway shared in common with beings of medium capacity, where one engages in the higher trainings of ethics, concentration, and wisdom, and by doing so, one is led to liberation or achieves liberation. This is an excellent quality that a person, the two higher vehicles would want to or wish to achieve. It's beneficial for them. So this is the second reason or point that's being made, is that in these, the great vehicle, practitioner of great capacity wants to develop those excellent qualities of the small and medium capacity as well. So it's beneficial for them to practice them because they are byproducts of their ultimate goal. So this is why it's called common, because it's a common want. It's the person that's medium also wants it, so it's a common want or a common purpose. Yeah, that's it. It's a common purpose or common want. And that's the reason for this word common.
This way.
Yeah, it's Sampa.
What that go back to what the government would tell that government to Karsavre. Ringy Tibat Jeremy, Chungundi, Chibo, Ringy Tibo, Susan was Adisha on those. Additional Tisona, Adisha Chuno, then Chungundi, the Nason, the Susan. No one wants to Javindo, what the wants you Javishundo, what the container. That neighbor than a conship of Gobat and Cons as a container. Additional Tisona, additional contest, Zonja wants you Jabber, Zonja wants you Jabbers against Jabba, what the Sanjay shoe, and no tin, Sonja do Juro. Zonja wants you Javish windows. What did Lanogi container? Zonja wants you Javish less. Zonja wants you Javish window the lay, person sombers. That is in Nabanga to Tommy in the Nobus, Jasun Nabius, Tom doing your door.
Let's say.
Do they are, and Tom Tanable, Taquan bongers, salt water. Salt water and bone.
Okay.
Then I was to drag Lawataki, she was. And look, she will Shamata to the Gatano, Tomaji. That neighbor there, Nyakwa, that push water. Nya to take quarter and a bone. Tenant to Shiba in a neighbor here. And the somebody there, pay chamber cause mutual noise, mutual. Sabuara, mutual mark, mutual.
Like moo, sir.
Sabuara and bon. And the rain jumbo to the Shiba Hina, and the never beat up chow, Jinabo. Then I took sent on also at an agent of the Dabores. What they should have done at the Tombo, Chung the Tumu Langi should have done Wores. Then the neighbor did the Tumu Langi should have done Wores. Somebody chibi longer. What the Jadi is a manate.
Less so. Then a Tombo, Sa Chu Dang Ja, Nipa, Nyash Chu. Nyachim, some
men look at you, then Nya.
Okay.
Push it, ya Togrota, the Quairo, Quan Bon, and the shit that number in a young copy down.
Bon, Rungu.
You
might.
Push water.
Okay, that's decent.
Not to the Nyaqua, not to require in under Karina woman.
Okay.
And not to require in
Lesser.
Ten bon, and she that number in a could be down to and the somebody there, mutual.
Okay.
Mutual and a sabuara, bon, and the rest of the Jambu the Shiba Hina, and never more.
Lesser. Okay.
Example.
Okay. It's a method of Rinpoche's explaining a method. We'll get to it. Here, let me just read the text. Those persons of least capacity may train in higher practices, but this will lead to their giving up their lower perspective without rising to a higher perspective, and thus they would be left with nothing. Furthermore, there could be persons who have the fortune to have already produced the higher paths in past lives. If they are taught the paths shared with persons of lower capacity, they then train in them. They will quickly give rise either to those good qualities developed previously or those not developed before. Consequently, as they have already developed lower paths, they can be led successively to higher paths unless their own path from practice in earlier lives will not be delayed. So I just wanted to read through that because Rinpoche read through it, and I just forgot to read that part. All the commentary was given, though. The questions of the Royal Lord of Formula. So here we're getting to the source material. We have Atisha's text, obviously, in the Tangjur, but here we find another source. And it says, the questions of the Royal Lord of Formula uses the example of a skilled jeweler gradually refining a jewel in order to illustrate the need to guide the student's mind in stages. Wary of being verbose, I have not cited it in full here. The protector Nagarjuna also said to guide students in stages. Okay, so here, in this questions of the Royal Lord, the Do Yimba, the Do. Okay. So it's a sutra text, questions of the Royal Lord. It compares a skillful jeweler in the refining process of a jewel. So Rinpoche said there's 3 refining processes. I don't know anything about refining jewels, so if this is an ancient process, I'm not sure. The first is salt water, using salt water to clean the jewel with. The second is fish water, so some sort of fish water that is used. We'll look further into this. But it's fish water is the literal translation. Then the third is silver water. So there are these 3 processes that one takes a jewel through in order to cleanse them of their impurities, and then they become very shiny and pure. So in this text, this refining process is used as an example to illustrate how one cleanses one's mind through the stages of persons of 3 capacities, how one refines or cleanses one's mind through the teachings that are shared in stages, beginning with the stages of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity. And then the next, which is compared to the salt water washing. And then the next, the fish water washing, that example is used for the stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity. So the stages that lead to the higher realms, then the stages that lead to liberation. And then the silver water, the stages of the path for beings of great capacity. So we find in the sutra this example of this jeweler refining the jewel, and then the student needing to refine his or her mind in stages, just like a jewel is refined in stages. Or, the word is refined, right? Gradually refined. So the jewel is refined in stages, just like the mind is to be refined in stages. So we find that in the questions of the Lord, Royal Lord of Formula. So it's similar to the stages that Atisha, that's where Atisha's source is, and we find it here.
상가가 내주 쉐비 사이 거기서 가서 생당 가지고 그걸 세다고 세노 쉐마도 사모고 와서 안 만났다 주기나 자마차도 들어보도다 나도 이제 쉐바다 안 나서 이제 넘어다 버렸어 어디 자마즈발라 되네 렘바스모 와서 제비 중국도 통고나 니도 통고나 제비 집이 나서 어디 간데 안 사보와라 then what the Bajadi is.
Yeah, shit. So in the Sanghas Nejor Sa, in the yogic levels of yogic deeds, it speaks of the mind being like gold that's refined. The gold that's cleansed of, begins with contaminants and dirt and sand and so forth, and then it is refined and transformed into this beautiful substance. So here, the mind is similar to a wish-fulfilling jewel, in the sense that it is refined over and over by the stages of the path for beings of small capacity. So it's refined like the salt water refining of a jewel. And then the stages of the mind is refined by the stages of the path for beings of medium capacity. So it's similar to the refining using fish water of a jewel. And then the mind is refined using the stage of the path for beings of great capacity. And it's compared to the refining of a jewel with the silver water. So we find in this Lord, questions of the Lord, Royal Lord of Formula, where we find this refining of the mind, and also in Asanga's level of yogic deeds, where we find the example of the mind being like gold. So here we have the example of it being like a jewel, or a wish-granting jewel, we could say. Yishin Norba would be wish-fulfilling jewel, and then Asanga comparing it to gold. So the example is giving the same meaning. Tiksun.
What the Nasu is Shiva the Nasu the Jinam Damaris, what the Zama Zuvala, and the Sabuara to the Chibuchung to the Molaji, and the Nyai Quag to the Chibundi to the Molaji, Muncho Sabuara de Karsura, Chibuchimila, what the Kikalega Nasu, Senju Zamazuna, Dendria, Tabaluya, Sanjia, or the Zamarve.
So our mental consciousness is similar to the gold, or similar to this wish-fulfilling jewel that can be refined and cleansed. We're able to refine it with the stages of the past shared in common with beings of small capacity, and then the mental consciousness is refined at that level, and we're able to achieve rebirth in the higher realms. We're able to refine it. And so that's similar to refining a jewel with salt water. We're able to refine it utilizing the teaching stage of the path for beings of medium capacity, and by doing so achieve the state of liberation. And that's similar to refining the jewel with the fish water. And we're able to refine our mind utilizing the stage of the path for beings of great capacity, and achieve Buddhahood by doing so, in the same way that one refines the jewel with silver water. So here, this is the stages of refining one's mind, and what the results of the refining are at each stage. Each stage has different results of its refining, as a jewel has different stages of its refining process.
So
Lama Tsongkhapa says here in this text it says, uses the example of a skillful jeweler gradually refining jewel in order to illustrate the need to guide students' mind in stages. Wary of being verbose, I have not cited in full here. Lama Tsongkhapa states he is not going to be verbose and explain it all here. But in Panchen Son Andrapa's general meaning of perfection, he does. So we are going to do so. We are going to go further into it. I don't think Rinpoche, I don't think he said we're going to be verbose. I think he said we're going to go further into it, utilizing Panchen Son Andrapa's text. In the later, it's inside that text. It's explained, elucidated.
Yeah.
So. Thank you, everyone. We'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayers. And everyone, don't forget, Tuesday night, Introduction to Buddhism class. And there's also, what time is it? Tuesday night at 7 p.m., Introduction to Buddhism. And let's do the concluding prayer, mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground, scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure land. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Geshe Rinpoche, Gutsi Shapi Denunan.